Good afternoon. How are you? I've been reading, so I'm a little blurry-eyed. But my eyes work well now, so that's not a problem. I have been able to follow the news today, and so probably have you. I guess the headline in the category are, how far above the law are they, and will that persist or will it change? Will somebody get some courage and go after Trump for the crimes he's committed and continues apparently to commit even after he's left the White House, even as we're trying to secure the classified documents that he has a bunch of down at Mar-a-Lago, his criminal headquarters. The story goes like this, and I'll go over the chronology a little bit. The president leaves the White House, takes classified documents. The president gets concerned that he may have to return them, and now we have witnesses and we have apparently videos, and I can't tell you which piece of the allegations they support, but the lawyer for one of the witnesses is on the record, and it's on the record that there was a video security that has captured some of the information. So what's the information? The information goes like this. The government had a grand jury, and they didn't think they were getting the documents they wanted, so they issued a subpoena, okay? And I think that was around May 22nd last year. And the subpoena is issued, and the government representative is going to come down and get the documents on or about June 1st or 2nd. Before he gets there, the documents are moved. And we know this from one or two of the movers. One has been at least identified as the lawyer who represents that person. And they're apparently visual aids. It's unclear if some of these documents are put in an SUV when Trump goes off to New Jersey. There's additional testimony that Trump would have some of these files in his office at Mar-a-Lago, and he would show them off to visitors. So what do we have here? Well, the two broad categories that we have are, first of all, possessing the classified documents is a crime. The question of intent, if there is such a question here, it seems we have in spades. But the other question is about what Trump did to obstruct, which he's a world-class obstructor, and he does it visibly, so everybody knows what he's done. So it appears that he's obstructed efforts to get these documents back where they belong, in the archives. So we have two crimes. We have the possession of classified documents, knowing they're classified, knowing it's in violation, and then we have efforts to obstruct surrendering the documents, which are contraband, if you will, because of their classification. And what are we going to do about it? Well, you know, everybody's running around saying that Blackjack Smith, he's ready, he's got enough to indict and so forth. So we're finally going to see what Garland will do. Or Jack Smith will do nothing and we won't know that maybe Garland killed the case. Is there any indication that Trump's people are afraid there's a case? There is, and this is the good news. That's why Trump, by his attorneys, in a letter that sounded like he wrote it, told our Attorney General, hey, you got to stop these guys. What they're doing is outlandish and wrong and so forth and so on. And but Trump's position isn't helped by the fact that there was a search warrant that revealed even after all of this that there were still documents at Mar-a-Lago. So, is he going to be indicted? I don't know. If I had to vote on the backbone of Garland and of Smith, whom I don't really know, and I do know, having seen past performances in justice, that whatever the person was beforehand, you can't always be sure you're going to get anything like that in the here and now, in the particular crisis that involves Trump and his cronies. So, if I had to guess, I'd say there's an 80% chance nothing will happen, because that's what they've done so far. And they've made a political decision that they'll win this in the ballot box. Very shaky way to do it. You can't win the argument you don't make. You've heard me say it a million times before. And if you're going to just sit there and hope the people get it, that we have a criminal running to get back in the White House to do what ill he can as a wannabe potentate, as an autocrat, well, yeah, don't do anything. Don't do anything at all. So the news is of a kind that we're used to when it comes to Trump. It is something that is intolerable. It is something that if you or I mistakenly took home a single piece of paper that was classified, and it was found out that we had it at home instead of at the CIA or one of the special rooms in which you're allowed to look at such material in the presence of an officer who would assure its chain of custody and its security, we'd be in the hooskow that night or by morning. I don't know that it would be justified, but that's what we normally do. Now, am I asking that they put Trump in jail? I would settle for charging him, taking his passport away. If he says crazy shit, pardon the French, then do with him as the judge, the state court judge in New York is doing. Threaten him with sanctions, but then carry them out. So that's where we stand with Trump. And even as I say this, last evening, DeSantis is edging to be the front runner over Trump. Presently, he's behind him, despite all the bad news about Trump, his misconduct, his demeanor, everything about him, which should justify that you would be right not even to trust him to wash your car. Now, what else is going on? Well, we do have a real problem, in my opinion, with the debt limit. And it's not that we're holding fast. At least some are not holding fast. And Biden, it appears, prepared to make an agreement that most Democrats, myself included, are not happy with. For example, we said these things had nothing to do with each other. But it sounds like Biden is prepared to move and to connect our budget to increasing the debt. Now, he could invoke the Constitution, Article 14, Section 4, and just declare himself, the debt is, we're going to continue to pay, and the debt is secure in the United States, notwithstanding those crazy Republicans. But it appears that there have been discussions in which the White House, through Biden, is saying things like, well, we'll keep spending at a constant level for the next year, 2 years, or whatever. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, costs increase, for one thing. Also, if it's level, but you change the fractions, for example, you increase the funds spent on defense, which, doesn't give us income. There are things that we can do in our society that actually promote economies and income. And where are we going to balance that increased fraction? We're going to take it from those people who need help the most. People over 88, for instance. People on Medicare, Medicaid. There's talk about about stopping the funding for student loans. So there's a number of things going on, all of which are quite terrible. And we're talking on June the 2nd. If we don't have an agreement, $98 billion is due on these kinds of costs. Military, civil retirement, military pay. And we're talking about a kind of economic freeze in America. And that's going to bring on harder times for us. So what are we to do? Well, the Democrats also have caucuses, and Sheila Jackson Lee, whom I haven't been in touch with a long time, but I got to know her during the impeachment when I was working on it as a counsel to the members. And she has a clear view about what we have to do, which is the White House should be speaking out about it. The White House should be resisting it. The White House should be saying, we're not going to go along with this. And they're not. And she raised this in the caucus, the Democratic caucus, and the news is out today. And you can probably find it in your funny papers. But she asked Jeffries, who's the minority leader of the Democrats, we've got to do something with the White House. They have to get involved in this. And Jeffries said he wasn't going to interfere in whatever the White House was doing. And I think that's a concern. That's a serious concern. And we have to do something about that. So meantime, Trump is calling the Justice Department unfair. And I guess he figures he'll scare Garland into doing nothing if Smith is willing to do anything at all. And the Department of Justice apologists are out there jumping up and down again, saying, something's going to happen. It'll happen in a week or so. Call me when it's filed. Call me when we have the arraignment for Trump. Then I'll believe it. And then let me see who's on the team prosecuting him. Is my doubt that great? It is that great. Cowards, all cowards. So, another question that's come up, which is a more comfortable way to finish our little walk together, is what do you think about working from home? Now, some great number of people have worked from home since the pandemic started. And I had just sort of put in some equipment so that occasionally maybe I'd have a client come to my home office and we'd work there. But that never happened. But when the pandemic occurred, I did have an office. Couldn't produce the large paper we can do when I'm at my real office, the in-person office. But most of what you can do these days that involves computers, you can do from almost anywhere. And so not spending the time to get to the office, which is not that far from where I live, and avoiding people for two reasons. One is my own safety. I don't have any comorbidities that I think would make me a worse candidate. But you're getting longer in the tooth. You have to be careful. But my most important concern, since my wife Holly is immunosuppressed, is to have as little contact as I really have to do. So I've been in crowds with a mask on. They were thin crowds. I sort of avoided the density. I try to stand back when I talk to anyone if I'm at such a location. If I'm standing at a mic and 10 feet away from people, then I'm talking to the mic. So I've been very comfortable with working at a distance, if you will. And it turns out that when they ask people what they wanted to do it, wish they could do it, it's like 70% of the people would prefer to work remotely. And many people these days can, and that would be good for traffic, it would be good for everything else. So that's something to think about. We really are what Aristotle said, we are political animals, and so we are healthier, and we celebrate companionship, whether we work, even when we argue, and in a constructive way. Not everybody is so constructive. So, what's my net for the day? My summary is, Trump continues to do his stuff. Other Republicans who are trying to talk even more radically than Trump, DeSantis I'm thinking of, are trying to find a place for themselves to substitute Trump if he's indicted or something and he gets weak and people don't want to quote apparent loser, want somebody else to do the crazy things that Trump would do if he got in. And the real question is, will Trump get in if we don't do what we need to do? If Garland doesn't rise to the occasion, when he hasn't before. Not a single speech of all of the items, all the chapters of the goings-on that have compromised our republic, compromised our democracy, Garland's like a lump of coal, so that's not very good. The other things that are happening, the violence, the dishonesty among Democrats and Republicans, by the way, and can you forgive politicians because they don't know another way? Well, there are heroes. There were 77 progressive congressmen in the House who wrote to Biden and said, invoke the Constitution, invoke your power to deal with the debt limit. We had Sheila Jackson Lee say in the caucus, and I'm sure others agreed with her, probably those who signed that letter in the House, it's basically saying, tell the White House, this is not working. We're standing quiet, and they're out there doing what the Trumpites do. They sell their case, and we're mute. That's not the way to win this. And who are they going to blame? The people. Who are they going to blame when they don't get retirement funds? When somebody doesn't get the health care they need? Some kid doesn't get the food? The people that anticipated that the breaks they'd get on their student loans, now it's uncertain, or it may not happen at all. Now the vote in the House, which is by McCarthy's crew, I would expect won't get past the Senate, and I expect that Biden will veto it if somehow or other it did. So that's not the emergency, and this is an example of where the congressional paralysis, the margins so close in both houses of Congress, protect us from the most outrageous things the Republicans want to do, but also at the same time don't give us the pathway to do the good things we need to do, and the debt limit being one of them if we want to do it the traditional way. And we have Democrats saying this has to be bipartisan. No, it doesn't have to be bipartisan. Not when members of Congress, of the House and the Senate, are not living up to their oath to preserve and protect our nation, its laws, its economy, the general welfare. So that's my thinking today on this walk in the woods. So I say good evening from my cathedral of trees, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.